Breaking a world record is great. Shattering your own record, even better. But not when you're winning a race to the bottom. Unfortunately, that's the case with South Korea. More specifically, its fertility rate. What's that? It's an average of the total number of children born per woman. That's the fertility rate. A country needs a rate of 2.1 births per woman. That's the ideal number. But in South Korea, the number stood at 0.78 in 2022, meaning less than one child per woman. It was already the lowest in the world, 0.78. And now it has fallen further. Based on data released today, South Korea's fertility rate stood at a record low of 0.72 last year. That's a decline of nearly 8%. Now, 8% may not sound like much, but it has grave consequences for South Korea. The country faces a population crisis, and it is only deepening. With falling birth rates, its population has shrunk for the fourth consecutive year. The country now faces a national extinction. That's what the government is calling it, a national extinction. Here's why South Korea has a population, South Korea has a population of 51 million people. If low fertility persists, the population will fall to 36 million by 2072. That's a drop of 30%, and it will halve by the end of the century, the year 2100. But the baby bust is troubling. South Korea is not alone, though, in this battle. Japan faces a similar problem. This nation, too, is shattering its own record. New data was released yesterday. It says the number of babies born last year fell. A 5.1% fall from 2022, a decline for the 8th straight year, and a record low for this country, Japan. China has a similar problem. Its population fell for a second consecutive year in 2023. Their birth rate, too, is at a new low. Now, as you can tell, this is a growing trend among many Asian countries. In fact, there is a list of 10 nations. They have the worst fertility rates in the world. Notice the Asian countries here. These are some of Asia's biggest economies, and they're leading the fertility decline. Their populations are aging rapidly, and they don't have enough children. It's a major concern for their governments. Why? Simply put, a bigger population means more people can work, so more goods and services are produced, and the economic growth is higher. But when the population shrinks, the share of workforce gets smaller, and the country has to support the elderly, meaning higher costs for governments. So they're trying to reverse the trend by paying people to have more babies. These nations are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to boost fertility rates. Since 2006, listen to these numbers, since 2006, South Korea has spent more than $270 billion to encourage people to have more children, $270 billion. Last year, Japan pledged $74 billion. That's about 2% of the country's GDP. And how is this money spent? Most of the measures across the region are similar. Payments for new parents, extra nurseries, tax incentives, parental leave, subsidized education. They all do this. But do these measures even work? Not really. Data from the last few decades proves this. These are all expensive measures, but they have little impact because people across the region have bigger problems. The rocketing cost of childcare, soaring cost of housing, lack of jobs, and gender inequality. As a result, the young are refusing to get married. Last year, marriages fell by 5.9% in Japan. The year before, they hit a record low in South Korea and China. Fewer people are getting married and fewer babies are being born. So the population crisis is compounding. Throwing money at the problem has not worked so far, and it will not work in the future. What policymakers fail to understand is this. The baby bust is not just about babies, it's about everything else too. It's about not having a well-paying job, not having a decent home to raise a child, not being able to work and take care of a child. These problems don't seem to be going away anytime soon, so if governments think that they have a population crisis now, they don't know what's coming next.